Welcome to the Events Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Taylor, and each week I talk with event professionals and entrepreneurs about how they plan, promote, and run their events. We help you build your events empire by growing your business using live events, whether you're running community meetups or conferences, trade shows, and other events. We focus on finding actionable tips that you can use straight away. We want you to get more attendees, produce epic events, make more money, and most importantly, to do it all with no stress. This podcast is sponsored by EventsFrame. Check it out over at eventsframe.com. Make the switch from Eventbrite today to our amazing ticketing and registration system with no ticket fees. Most ticketing systems charge you a minimum of 3% of the ticket price, but we just have a flat, low fee with no ticket fees and no restrictions. There's literally no system out there that is cheaper than EventsFrame. It's also super easy to use, and you can embed your tickets in your website, or you can use our own website builder, which is really simple. We have amazing options to apply all kinds of discounts and all the features you'd expect from a much more expensive system like QR code check-in. Go to eventsframe.com, that's eventsframe.com, for a free, no-risk, 1-month trial. Hi, this is Dan, just jumping in for a quick update. It's currently Friday the 6th of September. I'm back in Prague. I think I mentioned on the previous podcast I was in America for 2 weeks, which was a really amazing experience. I was on the West Coast in Washington State, Seattle area, and also went down to Portland in Oregon. And the main reason for the trip was an event we were running there. It was the Google for Education Seattle Summit. We've been running it for 4 years. And it used to be in a place called White River School District in Buckley, which is just south of Seattle. But we moved it this year to an amazing school, Monroe High School, just north of Seattle. So it was cool. I got in like 2 days earlier. I had my family in tow, my wife and young son. So obviously that brings a whole new set of business travel challenges when you've got your family along. But it was going to be a long trip, so better to take them. And we got in a couple of days early because we had a Google event scheduled for the Tuesday, but it was cancelled in the end. So we had a day to do some sightseeing in Seattle. We went to Pike Place Market, which is where the original Starbucks is. There's a great seafood restaurant there. Had a walk around Seattle downtown, which is cool. Then the event, it was interesting, talking events, there was, we had a few things went wrong and a few really went right. So we've got a bunch of bags at Apps Events, which have, standing signs. We have a photo booth where people can take their picture in front, wear kind of different costumes and stuff. So we brought the bag out. Now, I flew out on Monday. The summit didn't start until Thursday, so I think plenty of time. Delta Airlines lost the bag, like they seem to do every time I fly to the US. And it was a bit stressful, honestly, because it really didn't arrive until the morning of the event, which is crazy. It took 4 days to get there. I kept getting different calls. The bag remained in Prague for a couple of days, didn't even get out of Prague for some unknown reason, even though it had a big priority tag on, which obviously doesn't mean anything. Then it ended up in Amsterdam for a while, and eventually Seattle, and got couriered. So this was it. And I was deciding, do we get extra signs made? But in the end, it was a good sort of example of how to hustle to solve. We had a few speakers coming. I knew a few of the speakers had some signs. The school itself had some signs. We brought some in. And in the end, we had a bunch of extra quite cool, banners and signs and things. And I made a decision in the end that I was going to get some made locally, but I made a decision that it would still be a great event even without the full set. But anyway, it arrived in the end. And this is all, I think generally speaking, when you're sending things to an event, I would personally recommend to courier things in advance rather than traveling with them. Airlines have a pretty bad record of losing bags. And if you want to be sure things are there, I would always recommend rather than traveling with it. Because as soon as you check in a bag, you've got no guarantee it's going to arrive. And if it gets lost, it's probably going to be 2 days in my experience. It could even be 3. So I recommend always courier. And this was an example of not following my own advice. But it worked out in the end. So that was, I guess, what went wrong. What went right was it was a really, really good event, first of all, and 2 factors, I think. First of all, we've got a really good process, and we've got a USA director, Alison Molliker. She runs, all the Apps Events, USA events, and she has really good systems. I was running the event, but I was kind of running her system. So she has a website set up which has links to everything. Like really, she breaks it down. This is the opening session. You do this, you thank these people. This is the closing session. You run this game. You give these giveaways. Day 2, this is how you introduce the keynote. And I think there's a really great book called Work the System. Highly recommend it. The guy's a bit strange, but his core message is really good. And it's all about, he's really into creating what he calls SOPs, which are standard operating procedures. So you create a SOP for every single process in your business. And we try to do that at Apps Events. We create a process for everything. And then, running the event, somebody could step in. Maybe they've never run an event before, but they could still step in and run it because they're just going to follow the process. And that's what I did, thanks to our USA director. And the second reason it went really well was we had a really good partner. We partner with the school. So when we run an event, we don't run it ourselves. We partner with a host school. And I guess many of you who run events of different kinds will have a partner. And that's really key. If you've got an event where you've got a partner, you've got to really divide and conquer. You've got to break down, we're going to do this and you're going to do that. And the school really went above and beyond even what we expected them to do. So everything was great. They organized, the catering was organized, the school audio visual, the screens and the audio was organized. The classrooms were great. They had a bunch of student helpers. They had a bunch of staff helpers. Everything was done. So I think really, if you're going to have partners, you really make sure you give each other specific responsibilities. And also, you've got to prepare well. When we run an event, we normally plan it at least 6 months out. And the way we do it is every month at a minimum, sometimes even more, but every month we have a meeting with all the core team on the event. So we review everything. We check we're on target for the promotion, which is number one in the early days. Number two, the speakers and the schedules, because that's the core, that's your product, is the sessions, so making sure they're good. And thirdly, logistics, the catering, the school, making sure you got a networking party venue. That was another thing. We went to a local Italian restaurant for a networking party. It was great. I can't stress this enough, but I think everyone running any kind of event should do a networking. And if you can afford it, always buy drinks. Like we always, we put a budget of up to $500. It depends how many people come. We had about 40 people came, which you never get everyone coming unless it's a situation where everyone's traveling. This event, most people were local. They had to drive home, but we had about 30 or 40 out of towners. They came, had an amazing time. I mean, I think they had a better time than everyone because they came to the networking event. So that was the summit. So basically, the summit finished up about lunchtime on the Friday. My family turned up. I'm pretty quick at doing a teardown. When we finish an event now, I can have everything bagged up, ready to go in 30 minutes from the close of the final session. So we jumped in the car, and we drove to Portland, which Google Maps earlier on Friday was showing about a 2.5-hour drive from Seattle to Portland. What I didn't realize, though, is that from lunchtime onwards, that highway just gets completely chock-a-block. It took about 5.5 hours to get down. So if just an unlikely event anyone listening to this is driving from Seattle to Portland, you probably already know it just gets crazy. So we got into Portland just in time for dinner. We got onto the Uber Eats app and ordered some sushi to be delivered, put the baby to bed. We got an Airbnb. I really stress this a lot, but I'm traveling much more in Airbnbs. I was always a hotel guy. I kind of got sick of them, and I still believe, for business travel, if you're doing a 1 or 2 day trip, I think it's great to stay in a hotel. It's just simple. You're in, out, bang. But if you're anywhere, for me, if I'm looking at staying 3 or more nights, my default is always Airbnb. I love having the extra space. I love, often getting to meet people. If I travel by myself, I often just share a house with someone. My wife's, she's vetoed that for the family trips, but when I go by myself, I often stay with people. But now with the family, we always get a full place. So it was a really, really great place. Alberta Arts District, I highly recommend it. It's kind of the northeast part of Portland. Very kind of trendy, hippie kind of place, but it's nice. It's kind of, small, detached houses. But there's one street there called Alberta, which has loads of great restaurants, bars, things like that. And we were walking around with the baby every day. We found a cool breakfast place. We went every day. It was just so good. We just kept going back. I love the American breakfast style with the bottomless coffee, and you get the grits and all the other kind of American stuff. So it was great. We had a great time. We had a great bit of sightseeing around Portland. And then we went back to Seattle. I had another goal from this trip, as well as running the event. It was climbing Mount Rainier. So a good friend of mine, Piers, who works for Amazon, I've stayed with him many times. He lives in Queen Anne, which is a really nice district of Seattle, actually walking distance from downtown, but kind of up the hill, quite close to the Space Needle. So I met up with Piers, and we had to go and check in. Now, Mount Rainier is the highest mountain in Washington State. And it's a 3-day climb. We used a company called Alpine Ascents that I highly recommend. And so my wife and son stayed with Anne, Piers' wife, in Seattle for a few days, and we went off to climb the mountain. And it was an adventure, I would describe it. Really amazing. I mean, best of times, worst of times case. It was hard, much harder than I expected. Piers and me had trained over 6 months. And I think our training was right on the money because, we both summited, like out of 8 people, six made it. But by the time we got down, we were dead, I mean, everyone was ahead of us on the walk down, we didn't have much left in the tank. So we timed it well. It was interesting, we stayed on tents on the mountain. The first night was in kind of a wooden hut. And then the second night was a high camp. And it was great. It was real mountaineering, we had a day practicing walking with crampons, doing rope work. We had guides, obviously, 1 guide for every 2 people. So we stayed in this high camp on the second night, and then we left about midnight. So we didn't get, we got woken up at midnight. We left about 2 a.m. We didn't get any sleep at all. We were all kind of nervous. There was a lot of rain and stuff. So we woke up 2 in the morning. We had to get everything on. We made some quick oatmeal. Very military, kind of military-like, organization, getting everyone out the door quickly. It was obviously dark. Kind of sketchy because we had headlamps. The headlamps kept going out. We couldn't see all the crevasses, but the guides were telling us what to do. And we went up, and there's a big rockfall there, which you got to be very careful. And then you get up over onto the snow again. And we got about 30 minutes from the summit, and a huge rainstorm came. It's quite unusual. Normally you get snow at a higher altitude, it's not rain, but this rainstorm came from nowhere. So the guys were shouting, "Get your Gore-Tex on!" We had to put our Gore-Tex on, and we were soaked. I mean, even with the Gore-Tex, we were getting wet. And it didn't stop there. Then the kind of rain died off, but the wind came up, so it got super cold. We were really, the guides had a discussion, are we going to keep going? And in the end, they decided to keep going. And we made it, only just. We got to the summit, and my fingers were numb, toes were numb. And we had like 3 or 4 minutes and turned around and went down. So great to summit. Got much easier, though. The sun came out on the way down. It was actually quite pleasant. Spent most of the day getting down. But really great experience. Then back to Seattle to see the family again, which was amazing. We actually went out for drinks. We had a babysitter on the Saturday night before we left. We went out to a place called the Mountaineers Club in the Graduate Hotel, which is a great hotel in the University District, I believe it's called, where University of Washington is. So hung out with the family for a couple of days, and then flew back to Prague. Obviously flying with a baby, people know what that's like. But it was a great flight. We had an overnight flight. And the baby behaved, so we got a little bit of sleep. So now I'm back in Prague, really, recording this podcast. Kind of crazy to say, we've got 2 weeks here, then we're off to Asia for 7 weeks. So we're going to have hopefully a great adventure in Asia. I'll be talking about it on the podcast. But that's it for now, and I want to jump onto the interview. This is something I recorded a couple of weeks ago with Gail Crowe. She runs an events agency in the UK, and we talk about it. We have a quick chat about what it's like to run an events agency. It should be interesting for a few people. So all the best, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Hello, and welcome to the Events Podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be talking to Gail Crowe. And Gail runs an events agency in the UK, together with her sister, called Magnificence, and she runs a lot of corporate events, amongst other things, which is what we're going to talk about today. So, Gail, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Gail, can we get a bit into your background? How did you get started running events and things? What was the beginning?
Well, I've gone full circle, actually. I started off doing a travel and tourism degree, and with regards to conferencing and events was also involved. And then I went off to a different career path and had family. And then I actually got back into the event industry with another company that my sister was actually working at. And then they downsized. So that was about 3 years ago. So Lisa and I decided to take the bold step of actually setting up our own event company.
Now, let's talk about the job you had. Like, what kind of events were they running? And because I'm always interested in how people run their events. Were they running their own events, or they were an events agency?
They were they were an event company, sort of going where people would corporate clients would obviously contact us, looking for us to put the whole package together.
Yep.
So, yes, so they would obviously work with regards to other suppliers, and they would actually put the whole package together. Right.
What were you doing? What type of events were you doing, and how did it go there?
Oh, it was various things from murder mystery events to rides along the Thames, and then sort of having a meal afterwards. There was the land, sea, air treasure hunts, That was more sort of probably in the days where there was a little bit more money there and companies could be seen to be having fun. But now it has to have an educational element behind it.
Are you seeing less events? And interesting, I haven't heard that people say that. So you think there's less kind of corporate events that don't have like more of a team building aspect or something similar going on nowadays?
Yeah, well, I think it's perhaps not on such of a larger scale. It might be that it's more sort of internal with regards to small team members coming together as opposed to sort of the large company as a whole.
Yeah.
So it would be smaller teams that were being used that would come forward. But also, I think, the old B word with regards to Brexit, I think is certainly having an effect as well, and companies wanting to hold on to some of their money. Not too sure.
It's interesting. I haven't heard anyone say that. Whereabouts are you based in the UK?
We're actually based in Bedfordshire.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, what I think is I think there's actually already, I think Britain and a lot of European countries, I think we're actually already in a recession, but nobody wants to say it, Like if you look at, I mean, I've seen so many sort of recession type signs, but everyone's like still acting like the economy is doing great and everything's doing great. But, I get the impression that's not really the case,
No, and I think some of the, sort of big boys out there like Chili Sauce and go-to events, they seem to be sort of ticking over, but I'm not too sure as to what sort of calibre events that they're actually sort of still providing. So, they seem to be sort of keeping busy and things, but we've certainly noticed this year has been harder for us than it has been the 2 previous years.
Right, so let's get into how did you start your events company? Like, what was the origin sort of story of this?
So Magnificence was born because Lisa and I actually facilitate our own workshops, which is perfume making or fragrance making and sweet tree and chocolate making. So we figured we already had the smell and the taste actually sort of there. So I think it just came up with regards to Magnificence, and we actually now supply our own events based on the 5 senses. I would like to say that Lisa and I do them all, but we obviously don't. But we actually work with other favoured suppliers that we know that are going to be, good with regards to our clients and put our clients in safe hands, and that we're, knowledgeable in the fact that if we're not there to event manage, that our clients are going to be well looked after.
So what's the story behind the start of the business there?
The other company that Lisa and I both worked for, it was just with regards to they downsized, and we just sort of went for interviews and things like that, and we just didn't want to work for anybody else. We didn't want to have the wretched KPIs and sort of having somebody watch over us. So Lisa and I decided to take the sort of bold decision, knowing that we worked well together, even though we are sisters, to create Magnificence and to come up with a format with regards to actually facilitating our own workshops, but actually becoming sort of an event PA, if you like, with regards to clients, so that they can come to us for a think tank bespoke service, and we'll put them in the right place with the right event.
So how did you get your first client? If you can go back to this sort of story, let's talk you through how you actually got your first customer for this, because it's always hard to get going in the beginning and get the first customer.
Well, it is hard to get your first customer, to be honest with you, and we were aware as well that we didn't want to actually take any of our previous sort of accounts from our previous employer, because that didn't seem right either. So it was just a question of actually our first sort of client actually just sort of, it was word of mouth, and it was only a small sort of event with regards to our perfume making, and somebody needed something for a hen party. So we started like that, and then as I say, things have progressed, and then over onto the corporate side of things, we were actually found via search engine for chocolate making. So that was again a smaller team where they were actually sort of crossing over companies, and they wanted to obviously have some kind of team bonding experience between the two sides, so that they were all sort of singing off the same hymn sheet. So yes, so we were very fortunate in that. But since then, we've now changed our website, and yes, our SEO doesn't seem to be happening as much as it should be. So that's a little bit frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, SEO is a constant thing. You just got to be putting time into it all the time. It's always an issue for us. But I mean, it's just something you've got to work on every month. It's not. It takes a while, and you've got to stay on top of as well, getting lots of inbound links and things like that. It's just it's just hard work.
Told that SEO, is pretty much old hat now. It's more with regards to sort of going to social media and things like that. But again, it's very difficult when you're not a recognised brand, and even though you've done sort of work with regards to numbers from sort of 15 up to 350, once you've got a name that it's not recognised, it's like, well, they don't trust you with it anymore. So it's very difficult, and it's all about establishing relationships again.
So how did you get started running corporate events?
It was just with regards to the previous company. Basically, they were sort of mostly corporate events. They started that up.
No, I'm just curious, like how you got your customers, like obviously how you got the customers, how you did the first one. 'Cause it's always good to get into people hear the podcast. What they love is a detail. Like how did you actually go about getting the customers? How did you run the first event? I'm really curious to hear about that.
With regards to getting as I say, with the sort of first corporate event that we did, we were actually sort of found, and they'd actually found a venue already, which isn't something that we normally, sort of like to do. We like to put the whole package together, but they had found a venue, so we took our sweet tree chocolate making along, and that just sort of started the sort of ball rolling again. And it comes back to that sort of word of mouth, because somebody has used you and knows that you have a reputable company, then yes, it's with regards to going forward with that, really.
So when you say word of mouth, you mean you're getting a customer and they're referring you to another customer, and that's how you're getting more and more customers?
Yeah.
And are you doing anything to prompt them? Are you sending an email saying, hey, did you enjoy this service? Would you like us to recommend? Or are you just letting it happen organically?
Oh, no. I think you need to, once you've got your client, you need to keep hold of them, and you need to sort of, it's maintaining and establishing that relationship. So it's sort of, obviously, I think I heard on a previous podcast, I forget his name now, but he was, sort of saying with regards to sort of going back to them, and, if you'd had an event with them, to then go back and sort of say, oh, you had such and such an event with us last year, are you looking to sort of do again anything? Oh,
no, for sure. I was meaning more about how you're getting referrals for new clients from your existing clients.
Oh, right, okay. So with regards to how we're actually sort of progressing to actually find them.
Just to step in here quickly to mention our sponsor, Events Frame, a project I'm co-founder of, and I want to mention our integrations, which we believe are the best available. Firstly, payment integrations. You can connect any payment gateway such as Stripe, PayPal, on Braintree, or even bank account or take cash. You can connect everything to Events Frame. We also have the best marketing integrations out there with every email marketing system, including MailChimp, Zapier, Infusionsoft, Aweber, Drip. And we've got deep integrations with all the social media platforms like Facebook, Google, and Twitter. We've got thousands of events live on Events Frame right now, ranging from small community meetups to huge trade shows and conferences. Check it out over at eventsframe.com. That's eventsframe.com. Now, back to the interview. No, you mentioned you were getting word of mouth, like recommendations from existing clients. But I was saying, are you kind of proactively asking them to give you recommendations? Do you have any kind of email template, or is it just happening without you asking?
Well, I mean, we obviously sort of do take regards to testimonials, which sometimes that they, and that's something that we need to update on our website, because at the moment that it's just sort of purely on the private side. But with regards to sort of testimonials, and then what we usually do is put it on social media to sort of say, we've heard this from a client. But the thing is that, and I'm sure the other gentleman said as well, with regards to sort of divulging as to who your clients are, it's very secret squirrel, and it's not necessarily wanting to sort of say who you're working for.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So what other types of events are you running now?
So we do other things such as drum jamming. We're actually thinking about doing fragrance with a sort of fine dining experience. So it's really with regards to sort of what the client's looking for, and it depends on sort of numbers as well. We also use fragrance making in sort of networking scenarios when you need exhibitors to come over and you need to scan their details. We actually pull inners at those kind of events.
Okay, cool. And what do you see as a future? Like, where do you see as your business growing in the next months and years?
Just started a sister company called Scented Weddings. So that's actually taking the fragrance step one more level. So that's actually incorporating fragrance into your wedding day. So you've got scented layering, but with regards to Magnificence, we're hoping that we can obviously sort of work further with regards to the corporate market, blue chip market, and actually, we never want to be too big. We're quite happy as a sort of a small team, and we always want to be sort of involved with regards to that. That's something that we're, with regards to sort of taking on extra staff and things like that, that we would always want to be sort of hands-on still, because that's important to Lisa and myself. So
is it just the two of you? You run the company with just?
Yes, and then we've got freelancers that come in.
Right, and what are the freelancers like? What type of roles do you get in as freelancers for the events?
So that again is for our actual activities. So that would be for the chocolate making.
Sure.
But we would be looking eventually with regards to sort of the social media side of things. We would look to be progressing to give things out with regards to not doing it all, because you can't do it all, to be honest with you. And that's where it gets more difficult, and it gets to the point where you need to actually hand it over to other people that can do the job better than you.
Definitely. Okay, Gail, that was a super interesting chat. Where can people find you online if they want to get in touch and have a look at what you're doing?
All the social media sites under Magnificence 5, and our website is www.magnificence, that's sense.co.uk.
Great. Gail, thank you very much. It was great to talk.
Thanks, Dan.
Do you want to sell more tickets to your amazing events? EventsFrame event ticketing has been built to minimize the amount of time it takes to buy a ticket. Result? You sell more tickets. Check out eventsframe.com.